Hello, welcome back. And as I mentioned before, we're now turning our attention to Canadian funding tools. And I'd like to welcome our moderator for this session, Dr. Aniko Takacs-Cox, who's Director of Research Services at Simon Fraser University. Welcome, Aniko. I think we might have some technical issues we're just trying to resolve through right now. And maybe while we wait for Aniko to join us, I'm going to take the role of introducing our speakers. We have Suzanne Board, Deputy Director of SSHRC, Kim Douglas, Director of the New Frontiers Research Fund, Dr. Srita Ganapati, Policy Analyst for NSERC, Danielle St. John, Advisor, Strategic Partnerships, International Relations at CIHR, as well as Jennifer Gunning, Manager of Strategic Partners and International Relations at CIHR, and Michelle Baudry, Senior Programs Officer at CFI. And I think we have Aniko joining us. Oh, there she is. Partners and International Relations at CIHR, and Michelle Baudry, Senior Programs Officer at CFI. And I think we have Aniko joining us. Oh, there she is. Partners and International Relations at CIHR, and Michelle Baudry, Senior Programs Officer at. There we go. Over to you, Aniko. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So it sounds like Carol did a good job introducing all our speakers. We are introducing all the speakers in this session together to save time. Sorry about that glitch. And welcome everyone to this session dedicated to Canadian funding opportunities. And I'll hand the floor over to Suzanne Board from SSHRC right away.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, I'll just share my screen. It's a pleasure to meet with you in this way today. And my name is Suzanne Board. I am Deputy Director of Policy and International at SSHRC. That's the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Just get my presentation going. There we go. So I would just like to share with you a brief overview of how SSHRC supports international collaboration in the social sciences and humanities. And I believe, although I missed it, I saw in the chat that, that some of this may have been a little bit addressed in the previous session. And I'm sorry I missed that. Make sure I'm advancing it right. SSHRC, like many of the granting agencies that you'll hear from today, we have three main modes of promoting international collaboration in the social sciences and humanities. The first is by lowering barriers in our regular funding opportunities. So that is trying to let researchers and students do what they do best, which is partner with collaborators all over the world. So we like to remove barriers that might exist in our regular funding opportunities. Second, I'll speak to the second mode, which is opening doors, and that's establishing specific joint initiatives with granting agencies from around the world, specifically to promote international collaboration in research. And the third mode is positioning Canadian social sciences and humanities research on the world stage, so positioning Canadian social sciences and humanities on the world stage. I won't speak so much to that mode today. I'll just focus on the first two. So for lowering barriers, there's three ways that we try to do that. We have a foreign co-investigator policy. This means that Canadian researchers, when they're applying to SSHRC for their grants, can name foreign-based co-investigators on their grants. That means that they can, if they're successful in the competition, the Canadian researcher can share some of their grant funds with their foreign-based co-investigator. There's some rules around that, but this co-investigator policy applies in our insight development grants, in our partnership grants, partnership development grants mainly. The second way that we try to lower barriers is to allow the mobility of our talent awards. So that's the scholarships and fellowships for graduate students and postdocs. So we support Canadian graduate students and postdocs going abroad through the SSHRC doctoral fellowships and the SSHRC postdoctoral fellowships. There's also a tri-agency mechanism through the Michael Smith stipends that allows for short research stays abroad. And we also support, again, tri-agency, the international students coming to Canada through the Vanier doctoral and and the Banting postdoctoral fellowships. I would say that for the SSHRC doctoral fellowships and the SSHRC postdoctoral fellowships, we see about 20% of those awards being held abroad each year. The third way we try to lower barriers is by aligning our research policies and procedures with funding agencies from around the world. So that means if a Canadian researcher has a SSHRC grant and has to abide by the conditions and the policies related to that grant, well, they won't be so different from what their international collaborators are working with wherever they may be in the world. So we try to align, for instance, open access policies, research data management policies with other agencies around the world. Here, this slide didn't render exactly as I wanted it to, but you can see these are the numbers of, from our data, from our application data, that we see where international co-investigators and collaborators are named on SSHRC awards. This slide just shows a straight ahead increase over the past 10 years in that international collaboration. Here I'll draw your attention just to the box, and the green box, which shows where our international collaborators are situated. And so you'll see in that list, of course, some European Union member states. Here, this is among the joint initiatives. So this is how SSHRC intends to open doors for international collaboration in research. I've put here a few recent initiatives that SSHRC has undertaken to support international collaboration in this way. The Transatlantic Platform is a platform that we established with other funders in Europe and the Americas back in 2013. And it was intended to be truly a platform where we could launch different joint calls that were of interest with the partners engaging in the platform. So the first joint call was digging into data in 2016. Then we had a social innovation call in 2019. And we're gearing up for another call, which is now in development, to launch in 2021. I'll give you a heads up that this is likely to be focused on socio and economic response and recovery in the context of the pandemic. So it's likely to be what the thematic will be, so watch for that. The second mechanism is a mechanism that I think was mentioned in the first panel, which I didn't see, but it is how SSHRC for the first time experimented in collaboration with the European Commission so that SSHRC would be able to fund the Canadian teams that were part of European teams applying to Horizon 2020 calls, specifically in the area of migration. So there were several calls in 2019 related to migration, and again several calls in 2020. The results in 2019 were what we found quite promising. SSHRC was able to fund several teams that were successful through those calls. Here the innovation for SSHRC was that we were leveraging the peer review that was conducted entirely by the European Commission. So there was a bit of trust that we need there, and that we need to trust in the peer review of the European Commission, which wasn't, of course, hard to do. And then we could base the funding decision on the peer review that was entirely conducted by the European Commission. So that was a novel approach for SSHRC, and we were, and I think you'll see when we talk about the New Frontiers Fund that they have also, through that funding opportunity, also adopted a very similar model. The third initiative that I'll refer to is the Open Research Area, which is where SSHRC collaborated with funding agencies in the UK, Germany, and France to offer an open call for international teams from these 4 countries. We conducted a joint peer review, but the novelty here was that it was open. Many open to all thematics in the social sciences. Many international joint initiatives, you'll see, are focused on a particular theme. This, we were seeing how things would work if we offered an open call. There too, we've had some interesting results, and we are considering participating again in the next Open Research Area call. Here, I've just included a few points of what we're learning from the ways in which that we support international collaboration and research. We see that it's increasing in the social sciences and humanities. We see this from our own data. We see that collaboration among funders and other stakeholders really does increase the scope, scale, and impact of Canadian social sciences and humanities. And we are seeing that Canadian researchers in international joint initiatives, they're sought after as collaborators, and they're strong competitors in international joint initiatives too. So this has all been sort of confirmed through our recent experience with our joint initiatives. So I think that's where I'm ending, but I will be happy to take questions at the appropriate time. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Srita Ganapati from NSERC now.
Right. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Bonjour et bienvenue. I will just share my slides. All right. I hope everyone can see my slides and can hear me well. My name is Srita Ganapati. I'm a policy analyst at NSERC, the National Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. And it's my pleasure to present to you today NSERC's international approach and to share with you some programs and highlight them that you might be able to take advantage of to build your international collaborative research teams, especially with researchers from the European Union. So the outline of my talk today is I'll start off by situating NSERC in Canada's funding landscape. I will tell you a little bit about our international approach, give you some examples of our track record of collaboration with the European Union, and then I'd like to draw some parallels between some of the programs under Horizon Europe and NSERC, and also some thematic research areas. I think Frederick also touched upon this in the previous panel. And in the end, I just want to tell you a little bit about one of NSERC's newer programs, the Alliance Program. So NSERC has an annual budget of $1.3 billion, which it uses to fund post-secondary research and training in the natural sciences and engineering. NSERC supports 76 universities, 110 colleges and polytechnics, 12,400 professors, 3,800 industry partnerships, and 37,700 students and postdoctoral fellows. And in terms of our international approach, we've launched a number of calls for proposals and partnership with funders abroad, both bilateral and multilateral calls, notably with the European Union, Germany, France, UK. We strongly encourage you, the applicants, to please build in international and interdisciplinary dimensions to your research projects at the kind of inception, at the proposal stage. And on our part, we work to reduce, just as Suzanne mentioned from SSHRC, we also work to reduce barriers to international collaborations that you face, and to provide more mobility through flexible use of our grant funds. Of course, we recognize that students and postdoctoral fellows are important drivers of this research ecosystem, and so we provide a number of fellowships and opportunities for them that they can use up abroad as well. And so as a result of this kind of approach in the long term, we can now see in our bibliometrics that about half, 47% of NSERC funded natural sciences and engineering publications have an international co-author. And if we look at some numbers and investments in the year 2018-2019, NSERC spent $67.7 million on international research and training. A huge chunk of this, $21.7 million, were our discovery grants with international dimensions, $15.1 million on training grants, $3.1 million on research partnerships, some examples that I'll present shortly. And then $27.8 million was NSERC's share in tri-agency programming with international dimensions. So we work with SSHRC and CIHR as well for programs with international dimensions. Another number that I want to draw your attention to is the $20.6 million which was invested into NSERC's SAP program, or the Subatomic Physics Envelope, which involves these large-scale experiments such as, the ATLAS project at CERN with the Large Hadron Collider. So these infrastructure projects NSERC supports with a lot of support from CFI, whom also you'll be hearing from later today. Now again, analogous to what Suzanne just showed you, if we look at the kind of big picture, who are Canada's top 20 natural sciences and engineering collaborators? More than half of the countries on this list are from the European Union. Right on top you can see Germany, France, and so on. And in terms of some top-down programs which NSERC has been involved with the EU, in 2015 we had the Waterworks Call with a lot of Canadian projects funded. 2016 we had the Joint Aerospace Call. 2018 we had the GenderNet Plus, and very recently this summer we had a successful EU-Canada Quantum Workshop, and there's a joint initiative in quantum technologies which is in the planning stages, as was mentioned in the previous panel and also highlighted by Prime Minister Trudeau recently. Again, these ties with Europe are reflected in our bibliometrics as well. If you look at co-publications between Canada and Europe over these 9 years, 2007 to 2016, you see a nice increasing trend. There's been a 138% increase in these 9 years. And with that, I now want to draw your attention to some alignments between NSERC's programming and programming in Horizon Europe. So for example, NSERC's discovery grants and Horizon Europe's European Research Council grants are both, curiosity-driven, bottom-up, grants given to researchers. There are training grant parallels like NSERC offers CREATE, and we have the Michael Smith Foreign Study Supplements and other postdoctoral fellowships, which are a nice parallel to the Marie Curie actions of Horizon Europe. And this alignment also extends to research areas. And here I just want to draw your attention to Horizon Europe's mission areas. There are 5 mission areas: soil, cancer, climate, water, and smart cities. And these are kind of priority areas within Horizon Europe, and you can see the analogous NSERC spending just in 2018-19 that significant investments have been made on all these research areas. So just to connect it to you, I would say that if you're an audience member maybe from SFU's Earth Sciences department, it might be a great idea for you to check out European Research Council's awards database, and you can find kind of the top people in your field who've been funded through ERC. And so regardless of field, actually this is just the low-hanging fruit, the mission areas, but there's a lot of alignment between research areas. And as a researcher, I would encourage you to look at the ERC awards database to find top collaborators in the European Union for some bottom-up collaborations. And now I'm at the very last portion of my talk today, and I just want to shed some light on a relatively newer program through NSERC, the Alliance Grants Program. They've just been around for a couple of years. So this program has 2 big objectives. One is to enable Canadian university researchers to collaborate across different sectors, so with Canadian private sector, public sector, not-for-profit sectors. And the second big objective is to generate new knowledge which directly benefits Canadians. And I just want to highlight that benefit here is, it includes but is not limited to economic benefits. We're also talking about societal benefits and policy implications and so on. And so what you should know about the Alliance grants is that the funding amounts can be anywhere from 20,000 to 1 million per year for a duration of 1 to 5 years. There is no deadline to apply, so you could be planning out your project right now. You would need a partner organization. I encourage you to check out NSERC's Alliance web pages for more information about what these partner organizations can look like, how can their investment be taken into account for cost sharing. And another aspect that I want to emphasize is to encourage you to build in international collaborators at the very inception stage. You know, you could be collaborating with the top researchers of your field in Europe. You could be accessing research infrastructures outside of Canada. Of course, you know, goes without saying, this would provide an enhanced training opportunity for your students and your postdocs, and, you know, build networks that they will take advantage of later in their career as well. Just a point to note, international partner organizations' contributions may also be recognized for cost sharing. More information on our website, and up to 30% of grant funds can be spent on other disciplines, so we encourage interdisciplinary big projects for Alliance. And so just to summarize, Alliance is one funding opportunity with kind of two funding options for you. So in the very first option, NSERC could fund anywhere between 50 to 67% of your project, and the rest of the funding would come through cost sharing from your partner organization. And how much NSERC funds your project will depend on the size of your partner organization. And in the second mechanism, if you can demonstrate that your research project has societal impacts, you're making connections, for example, you know, with Europe, international collaborations and broad outcomes, NSERC could fund up to 100% of your project. And so with that, I just want to share my email with you. You can get in touch with me in the workshop session as well later this afternoon or morning. And pour les questions en français, mon collègue Noel Burns, directeur adjoint, vous aidera. N'hésitez pas à m'envoyer un courriel dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Merci à tous, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Srita. And I'd like to bring Michelle Woodley from CFI to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I will just share my screen. There we go. I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Michelle Beaudry. I'm Senior Programs Officer at the CFI, and I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to talk to you about how the access to state-of-the-art infrastructure plays an important role in establishing and maintaining collaborations between Canadian and international researchers. So to start off with, I would like to say a few words about the CFI. So the CFI was created in 1997 to ensure that Canadian researchers had the tools and the cutting-edge labs and equipments needed to push the frontier of knowledge. At that time, the research infrastructure in labs across the country were outdated, had suffered from years of underinvestments, and it made it very difficult for our researchers to keep up with leading-edge research. So the CFI was given the mandate to build our nation's capacity to undertake world-class research and technology development. The way CFI fulfills its mandate is by investing in research infrastructure necessary to conduct leading-edge research in all areas of science. So in humanities, social sciences, health, engineering, environment. So for infrastructure, CFI is all of the different science areas. And we also fund all types of research infrastructure, from basic laboratory equipment to large-scale research facilities such as synchrotrons, telescopes. We cover the gamut of disciplines and type of infrastructure. Our approach to research funding is a bit different than the Tri-Councils. CFI holds competition for eligible Canadian university, colleges, research hospital, and not-for-profit organizations. CFI awards are institutional awards. It is not possible for an individual researcher to submit a proposal to the CFI. The proposals must come directly from an eligible institution because the institution must commit to providing the ongoing operations and maintenance for that infrastructure. The CFI also provides our funding on a cost-sharing basis. So the CFI provides up to 40% of the project cost. Matching funds are secured by the proponent from a variety of other sources. Typically, we see the provinces in Canada coming in and co-funding 40%, so matching the CFI's 40%, and the remaining 20% is from either industry or other private sector contributions, or in this case, it could be from an international partner. So in our formula, the remaining 60% must be secured from sources others than CFI. There's no typical way to do it. There's some ways that are easier than others, but that's basically how it's done. The CFI is a highly competitive process. It requires excellence and institutional commitment to maintain the infrastructure through its useful life. The focus of CFI is on the excellence of the research as a primary criteria, and in that way we ensure that we fund cutting edge and innovative research. CFI encourages cross-disciplinary and intersectoral application as well as multi-institutional applications. Since its creation, the CFI has invested over $8 billion in research infrastructure. That's the 40% investment, so generated almost $20 billion in overall investments. And this has been done over 160 institutions, over 11,000 projects. Well, the way the CFI provides infrastructure funding is through two main funding programs. So the John R. Evans Leaders Fund and the Innovation Fund, which I'll talk after. Although the CFI does not have any special fund or special targeted opportunities for international collaboration, our existing programs provide the flexibility to include, as part of the research team, international collaborators. So the John R. Evans Funds is a fund dedicated to help institutions attract and retain the very best researchers. So this enables the institutions to remain competitive at an international level in areas of research and technology development that are aligned with their strategic priorities. Well, this fund also offers institutions the opportunity to create competitive research support programs in the form of infrastructure and also a portion of operation and maintenance cost. And through our partnership streams, they can create packages coupling the infrastructure and the research cost from our tri-council organizations. The CFI Innovation Fund is our flagship program. It runs at regular intervals, so every 24 to 30 months. And it provides investments for infrastructure across all the spectrum of research, from the most fundamental to applied through technology development. So the Innovation Fund helps Canada remain at the forefront of exploration and knowledge while making meaningful contributions to generating social, health, environmental, and economic benefits and addressing global challenges. These regular competition intervals allow institutions to plan strategically and to propose mature projects while continuing to develop promising ones. The 2020 Innovation Fund competition results have just been announced last week. So we have awarded $400 million in infrastructure investments across different institutions in Canada. Scientific research is by nature a collaborative activity, and that is increasingly without borders. So having access to state-of-the-art infrastructure enables our researchers to participate and be competitive on the world stage. In Canada, the share of publications authored with at least one international collaborator has been around 50% for the last decade. So access to high quality, leading or unique research tools and infrastructure often underpin such international collaboration. A look at the Tri-Council and CFI investments to date tells us that a large portion of Canadian researchers are engaging in international collaboration. And the motivation behind most collaboration comes from researchers seeking out the best talents, institutions, and facilities for their research, wherever they may be. So Canadian investments in the talent is a strategic tool whereby institutions increase their global reach. As other countries try to increase their international efforts, the global research landscape is producing collaboration opportunities which require strategic and focused approach. So overarching research needs and goals are global challenges inherently international in scope, are complex and costly and of large endeavors, and research undertakings combining a diversity of international skills and expertise in an effort for the world's best scientists. So a collaborative approach is needed, and often the infrastructure is at the base of that collaboration. Thank you. I will stop here.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, Michelle. And I'd like to bring to the stage Danielle St. John and Jennifer Gunning. I understand that Danielle is having some technical difficulties, so Jennifer will start, and hopefully Danielle will join us soon.
Hey, thank you very much, Aniko. I'm pleased to be here. I hope everyone can see my screen okay. It's a pleasure to be with the group this afternoon to talk about CIHR's engagement with international collaboration and engagement with the European Commission more specifically. So I'm Jennifer Gunning, the Manager of International Relations and Institute Support at CIHR. And if we're able to work out the technical difficulties, my colleague Danielle St. Jean will join, as Danielle is really our lead for our engagement with the European Commission and has a great deal of expertise that she'll be able to offer during the Q&A sessions. In terms of the presentation today, we just thought we'd touch base briefly on CIHR and what our approach to international engagement is. Talk about our engagement with the European Commission and some of the upcoming calls we anticipate participating in, as well as touch base quickly on Horizon Europe and some of the opportunities for intersection for CIHR as well as the Canadian health research community. So just to ground the presentation, I wanted to start with just a quick snapshot of CIHR, who we are as the health research funding agency at the federal level in Canada, and what some of our key missions are as an organization. So there's really 4 primary areas of responsibility that we have. The first, of course, is focused around funding health research across the country, across all areas of health sciences. This is done through 2 primary mechanisms, including open and investigator-initiated research across all research disciplines, as well as strategic programs to address health challenges in priority areas. The second area is, of course, building research capacity in underdeveloped areas and training the next generation of health researchers in Canada. The third area is around knowledge translation and ensuring that the research investments that we make have a very real and tangible impact on future research activities as well as on society. And then the fourth area is around providing advice to our Minister of Health, as well as engaging strategically with the Government of Canada across a range of different files as well. And the reason I just wanted to highlight all four of these areas, because I would say all of these areas intersect with our international engagement activities as an organization, and in particular our engagements with Europe. In terms of an organization, similar to what you've heard from NSERC, we have a budget of approximately $1.2 billion per year as the Health Research Funding Agency. These funds support approximately 7,400 researchers and trainees across the country in over 265 different institutions. What you see in the center of the slide here is a representation of the 13 institutes that make up CIHR. The institutes are primarily responsible for driving the strategic orientation of the organization, developing strategic programs in their mandate areas. They're also embedded within the health research community, ensuring there's a really good two-way interaction between ourselves as the federal funder and what's happening on the ground with the health research community across the country, with our institutes based in academic institutions across the country. Through the institutes, as well as different parts of the organization that sit in Ottawa at the corporate office, we interact with a broad range of partners and stakeholders, over 250 partners currently across a range of different sectors, including the provincial health funding organizations, a wide range of health research charities, the private sector, and of course we have quite a wide range of international collaborators as well. In terms of how we engage internationally, this has been an area of focus for the organization since our creation 20 years ago now. Our international engagement activities are really focused around three primary objectives. First and foremost, and what's most relevant, I think, to our presentation today, is the first area, which is really focused on ensuring Canadian health researchers are able to connect with their counterparts all around the world. We do this through mechanisms such as our open investigator-initiated programs and ensuring those programs are open to and can facilitate international cooperation, much along the lines of what you heard Suzanne talking about earlier from a SSHRC perspective. We also support a wide range of international cooperation through the strategic funding programs of the organization as well. Our international agenda includes a focus on global health. We talk about mainstreaming global health so that it's integrated across various activities of the organization, as well as integrated into the activities of the Canadian health research community. And then the third pillar of our engagement strategy is really to increase Canada's visibility and influence on a global stage, really leveraging Canadian expertise. In terms of where our engagement with the European Commission fits into all of this, I would say that our profile of activities with the European Commission has certainly been increasing over the last 10 years. We engaged originally with the European Commission and through one of the public-to-public partnerships dating back to 2009. As you'll see on this slide, our engagement in different public-to-public partnerships or research consortia under the European framework programs has expanded quite significantly over that time frame. Currently, we're involved in 15 different partnerships of this nature, including things focused on antimicrobial resistance, rare diseases, nutrition, and a range of health service issues as well. I would say CIHR continues to actively engage in these consortia given the wide range of positive benefits we see in terms of this engagement, both for CIHR as an organization as well as for the Canadian research community. One of the core responsibilities of these public-to-public partnerships is really developing strategic research agendas in these priority areas and then supporting joint funding opportunities that allow the Canadian research community to work with their counterparts in Europe and beyond to address some high priority and large scientific challenges. And you see on the right-hand side of the slide there some of the other benefits that we have seen in terms of our continued engagement in public-to-public partnerships under the European framework programs. The other mechanism that we've utilized in recent years in terms of increasing our collaboration with Europe has been through a couple of flagship programs with the European Commission. And a distinction between the flagship programs and the public-to-public partnerships that I was previously talking about is these programs are bilateral programs between CIHR and the European Commission, where each and every one of the projects that is supported involves a Canadian investigator. They've been a really nice way for us to have a strong area of focus and joint programming with the European Commission in a couple of areas that were deemed of very high priority for both organizations. And in terms of the impact of all of this over recent years, you'll see that through our involvement in these 15 public-to-public partnerships, that to date, CIHR has participated in 48 joint transnational calls, which has resulted in us financially supporting over 185 research teams, or the Canadian component of those teams. That's been through an investment of $54 million, which has seen us able to leverage over $190 million for those same research projects through the international collaborators in those consortia, whose investigators are also involved in the research projects. I believe my colleague Danielle has been able to join us. Danielle, maybe I'll ask you if you're ready to go to just speak briefly to the upcoming joint transnational calls that CIHR expects to participate in 2021.
Yes, I'd love to. Jennifer, sorry for joining late. I had technical difficulties, but happy to join everybody now. So I'm Danielle Saint-Jean. As Jen might have mentioned at the beginning, I'm also the national contact point here in Canada for health. So if anybody at the end will have my contact information, but if anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out to me after this information session with any question I'd be happy to answer. So this slide here really shows the 4 calls that we anticipate to have in 2021. Usually we have a slew, much more than 4, but this year with COVID-19 and for many different reasons, we anticipate to have 4. The first one is really with the European Joint Program on Rare Diseases. We're looking potentially to have about 1.5 million from CIHR to support really just the Canadian component of about 5 teams. We understand the call might be published in December 2021. So for people that are interested in rare diseases, it'd be key to look at the website ResearchNet in December 2021 for more details. That would be coming out then. For the second one is the Joint Programming Initiative on Antimicrobial Resistance. That one we're looking to potentially 2.2 million to support about 4 teams over 3 years. And then the call publication would be coming out in January 2021. So you could look to see it for more details there. The third call we're looking to potentially join is the Joint Program Neurodegenerative Disease Research. And this one we'd be looking to put about $666,000 to support 2 themes. And this one would be published in January 2021 with more details. The last call, which is actually, we're quite pleased because this would be the first time that we join TransCan. So it'd be our first time launching a call with this group, TransCan. And it's really a call that would be focused on cancer immunotherapy, targeting the tumor microenvironment. This one would be only launched in the second quarter of 2021, but we're working with the members on that call to see if that's something that we could join also. So something else to look on our ResearchNet for more details in the second quarter of 2021. So we just want to give you a bit of a heads up that these are 4 calls that we're looking to potentially join and launch in the upcoming months.
Okay. Thanks very much, Danielle. And as I mentioned in the beginning, Danielle has a great deal of expertise in terms of various mechanisms to engage in and be supported by various Horizon 2020 programs, including those that CIHR directly participates in. And if there is interest in some details on some of those other options for participation, we'd be happy to take questions around that in the breakout group. As I mentioned, we just wanted to finish with a brief overview of what's coming up in Horizon Europe with respect to potential areas of focus and intersection in the health research sector. I'm sure it's been covered already. The European Commission is expecting to make very significant investments in the next framework program, over 80 billion euros. We continue to be really pleased to see a continued focus on health research in the plans for Horizon Europe. On the left-hand side of the slide there, you see the priority areas that have been identified for the health cluster, as well as the research, as well as the themes for the missions that will be launched under Horizon Europe as well. As you'll see from the previous slide, although it may not be apparent in terms of the areas of intersection currently between Canada and the European Commission in the health sector, as you'll see from the wide range of public-to-public partnerships we're currently involved in, we see a great deal of opportunity moving forward to continue to collaborate with the Commission under the health cluster, as well as in some of the areas of the mission as well. There's a couple in particular around cancer and climate change that have a particular relevance to health as well. So just to signal that we expect to see ongoing and continued engagement between Canada and the European Commission in the health research area. So I think that's all for now. Thank you for your attention, and we'll look forward to taking any questions in the breakout.
Thank you, Danielle and Jennifer. I'm glad Danielle could join us. And now I'll give the floor to Dr. Kim Douglas from the New Frontiers in Research Fund.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to just start by giving a very brief overview of the New Frontiers in Research Fund. So in a lot of ways, NFRF, as we call it, is a little bit of a little sibling to what the agencies in CFI just finished presenting to you, because rather than an entire agency, it really is just one program. It is a tri-agency program. It's administered through SSHRC, through the TIP Secretariat. It's administered on behalf of the three granting agencies under the direction of the Canada Research Coordinating Committee. It was launched in December 2018 with an initial budget of $275 million over 5 years. And the annual budget will increase to $124 million per year beginning in 2023-24. The objectives of the NFRF program are to fund research that's international, interdisciplinary, fast-breaking, and high risk. There are three objectives. One is to generate opportunities for Canada to conduct innovative, high-risk, high-reward interdisciplinary research, to build Canadian strength and leadership in transformative interdisciplinary research, and to enhance opportunities for Canadian researchers involved in international research partnerships. So there are three streams. Each one addresses one of these objectives. I will say there is sort of a fourth stream as well, which is a means to initiate and run calls related to fast-breaking research or rapid response. There are three main streams. For all the streams, there are 5 broad evaluation criteria: high risk, high reward, feasibility, interdisciplinarity, and equity, diversity, inclusion, which includes support for early career researchers depending on which stream it's in. The weighting of the criteria can change between the different streams and even between the different stages of a single stream, and also how the criteria are defined can vary between streams. So for example, In the exploration stream, high risk actually means high risk research, so that the research, there's a high probability that the research will fail, that the proposed hypothesis will not bear out, whereas in the transformation stream, it is defined more as the novelty of the approach, Another unique feature of the NFRF program is that we can make use of novel approaches for evaluation. So, for example, double-blind review, which we use in the exploration stream, as well as approaches including the sand pit or a dragon's den model, which we will see coming up in future competitions, but we're not using at the moment. So I'll briefly go through each of the streams, and then I'll touch on the international dimension for each of these. So for the exploration stream, this is the stream that supports high-risk, high-reward interdisciplinary research. Grants are up to $250,000 over 2 years, which includes indirect costs. Minimum team size is 2 since 2019, and there's 100 awards, 100 new grants awarded annually. So a brief overview of what we've had to date. The first competition we held under NFRF was under the exploration stream in 2018. That one was targeted to early career researchers. 157 grants were awarded in 2018. As of 2019, the competitions have been open to all researchers. We awarded 183 grants in 2019, and we're still in the midst of the competition process for 2020. 608 applications have been submitted, and we are in the process of having those evaluated by external reviewers and members at the moment. In terms of interdisciplinarity for exploration, it's not required that the subject or the proposed project cross the mandates of more than one agency, but it is required that it be interdisciplinary and a novel interdisciplinary approach. The transformation stream is our latest launch, or I should say it's the one that's generated a lot of interest. It's a large-scale grants up to $24 million over 6 years, including indirect costs. Competitions held every 2 years, a minimum of 6 awards per competition. They are for large-scale Canadian-led, world-leading interdisciplinary research projects that address a major challenge with a potential for high reward. For the transformation stream, to meet the interdisciplinarity requirement, they have to cross the mandates. The proposed projects have to cross the mandates of at least 2 of the 3 federal granting agencies. So the current transformation competition is the inaugural one. It was launched last December. 460 NOIs were submitted, 347 letters of intent, and just a couple weeks ago, the applicants were informed that 31 of the LOIs have been invited to the full application stage, and we anticipate results from this in July of 2021. And finally, our international stream. There are 2 mechanisms under the international stream. There's joint calls and there's global platforms. So joint calls, as the name suggests, would be joint funding calls with international partners on topics of international relevance to both partners, and global platforms. So global platforms is dedicated funds to support the Canadian researchers who are already participating in projects funded by major global platforms. So we have launched a competition under the Global Platforms mechanism, the 2020 Horizon Global Platform Competition. It was launched last January, and it supports Canadian researchers who are participating in projects funded by Horizon 2020 through one of 34 calls. I will say it was actually more than 34 calls because applicants could request exceptions and inclusion of other calls if they thought that it fit within the criteria of the NFRF program. And the grants for this competition are up to $125,000 per year for a maximum of 4 years, which also includes indirect costs. Now, in terms of support for international collaborations, in the exploration and transformation stream, international researchers are eligible to be co-principal investigators, co-applicants, and collaborators. And those who are co-principal investigators and co-applicants can access NFRF funds. Not directly, but NFRF funds can be transferred from the nominated principal investigators to co-principal investigators and co-applicants. In the international stream, for the moment, what we are thinking, and for the Global Horizons competition in particular. The funds are to support Canadian researchers only, with the idea that the funding from the major global platform, Horizon 2020, in this case, would be supporting the international participants. So to give you an idea of the participation rate, here are some data from the 2018-2019 exploration competitions. Those data are from the awards. So you can see that around 20% of all of the grants awarded had international team members that were eligible to access funds, so co-PIs or co-applicants, and closer to 50% included international team members as collaborators. For the data for the 2020 exploration and the transformation stream is for the submitted applications that we've received. So you can see, and from our earlier competitions, we can see that the actual percentage increases once we look at those that are awarded. So teams that have international participants tend to have a higher success rate than those that don't. And I can say that for the transformation stream, of the LOIs that were invited to the full application stage, the percentages are 87% and 97% for those including international participants. Of the international participants, between 30 to 40% of all of them, regardless of the category or the competition, are from Europe. So here's some information, our website and email address if you'd like to get in touch with us, but I will answer the one question that I think that, the two questions I would say that I'm guessing are the ones most likely to come up. So one of them is, will we be having a similar global platforms competition for Horizon Europe? And the answer right now is we don't know. So there are some discussions ongoing, which I think may have been touched on in an earlier session, regarding Canada's participation in Horizon Europe, and until decisions are made about that, we don't know at this moment what the approach will be from an NFRF perspective. And the other is a joint initiative. So when will we be launching joint initiatives? The CRCC, the Canada Research Coordinating Committee, is involved in some discussions, and we are continuing to have discussions with them as well as with our agency, all of the agency partners, in terms of identifying the most appropriate joint initiative and partners that we should be moving forward with. So we're hoping sometime in the next fiscal year, but can't say for sure. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Kim, and thank you for answering some of the questions that already came on. And because it's already 11 o'clock and it's time to move into the breakout session, I suggest that people who asked more questions and specific questions, please join the presenters in the breakout sessions and ask those questions there directly. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all the presenters, for all the wonderful information. And I'll give the floor back to Carol.
Thank you very much, Aniko, and thank you to all the presenters. As Aniko mentioned, we are moving now to the sessions, and these are the first sessions in our 2 rounds today. So you'll have SSHRC, NSERC, and NFRF sharing one room, and CIHR in another room. And we've done our best to copy all of your questions that you posted in the chat box so that we can bring those over. And once we're in that room, you'll be able to interact directly and have mic and audio on. So we'll see you there in a minute. Thank you, everyone.